Christina Briones, and welcome to our Channel 4 News Special Edition News Report. Today joining us, we have the Green Machine researchers here to inform us on Nigeria and climate change. Let's get to know exactly what we're in for.
Hello, I'm researcher Johnson, and my focusing point is opportunities and vulnerabilities in Nigeria.
Hi, and I'm researcher Sandy. I'm gonna discussing the history and the involvement in fossil fuel production and use.
Hi, I'm Eddie, and I will be discussing the UNFCCC and the Kyoto Protocol work with regard to Nigeria's involvement.
Hi, I'm Jia Tian. I'm discussing our recommendation and the best way to move forward.
Thank you. We're very excited to have you here. Now let's take a deeper look into the vulnerabilities and the opportunities.
Hi, I'm researcher Johnson. Now I'll talking about the vulnerabilities and opportunities in Nigeria. Well, the first vulnerabilities in Nigeria is flooding. Coastal regions like Nigeria have high sea levels. That's the main reason that Nigeria has flooding. Rainfall has also increased, adding to the flooding. The people of the community are concerned about the safety of their homes, their works, and their lives. Excessive rainfall and flooding has destroyed life and properties. Moreover, because of the flooding, damage control plans are put in place by elevators and government. Warm weather and rainfall also increase the size of mosquito populations and the abilities of mosquito habitats. The disease malaria now has great opportunity to hurt people. The other vulnerability in Nigeria is air pollution. Lagos, city in Nigeria, has increasing air pollution due to excessive carbon emissions. Lagos is the largest metropolitan city in Nigeria. Manufacturing is affecting the air pollution. The manufacturing industries in Lagos rely on hydroelectric power supply. Hydroelectric power supply triggers epilepsy. However, manufacturing also brings opportunity to Nigeria. Other countries involved in the Nigeria's raw goods are also affected. Manufacturing brings in large amount of money to Nigeria. Desertification is also another vulnerability in Nigeria, which is caused by deforestation. The country lost about 55% of its primary forest. Nigeria is one of the most desertification-prone countries in Africa. Because of the desertification, fertile land will become desert. Lakes, land support, wildlife, and people are affected. Temperature increase in Nigeria of 1.1 degree, which is a great impact on architecture and economy of the nation. Death rate will increase as people will not be able to survive without water. People are also highly vulnerable to disease. The good news is federal, state, and local governments are forced to come together to strategies in reducing the amount of emissions causing the air pollution and desertification. Even though climate change is affecting the temperature and rainfall in Nigeria, it also brings a better yield and reduced incidence of black pole disease on cocoa. High rainfall and favorable temperature promote flowering intensity of cocoa, which can bring in large amounts of money to Nigeria.
Coming up next, we learn more about the history of Nigeria.
About the history, Nigeria's first oil was taken in 1930s. Nigeria once had immense amount of barrels of oil to themselves, and had independent plans to export and expand in palm oil. Over 65% of the world's electrical energy is generated by steam turbine generator, burning fossil fuel as their energy source. But Nigeria, on the other hand, has over 50% of their people without electricity. Flue wood is used by 80% of Nigeria as an energy source. Forest degradation is a result of Nigeria's increase in deforestation. According to the UNFAO, 10% of Nigeria is forested, but between 1900 and 2005, Nigeria lost nearly 80% of its old-growth forest. As Nigeria strives to become more industrialized, new chain restaurants are being built, which has increased the amount they go out to eat. The most common transportation in Nigeria is public transportation. The carbon footprint is 15.3%. It is growing, but in comparison to other middle classes, it is 62.8% better. The carbon footprint of the lower class is 12%. It is smaller than Nigeria's middle class in particular, and 70.7% better than the average. Lower class is more highly exposed to climate change, making them more vulnerable and have less resource, making them more apt to adjust.
Please stay tuned for our segment of the UNFCCC and the Kyoto Protocol in regards to Nigeria.
On June 13, 1992, Nigeria signed with the UNFCCC. On December 10, 2004, Nigeria accepted the Kyoto Protocol. Before the protocol, Nigeria was dominated by their military. They strived to nurture democracy within their country. Since the protocol, democracy has been restored. Nigeria has had a gradual and impressive transition. They are undergoing a learning process and always have been. One of Nigeria's main points in the UNFCCC was to sustain human development within their country. Another involvement in the UNFCCC was to address the issue of climate change while protecting the economy of their own country. Nigeria knew their involvement in the UNFCCC and the Kyoto Protocol was necessary in order to make technological advances and development for the country. Nigeria wishes for fairness and growth in their country, and also to protect resources that they could use for trade. The NNPC is the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, and their purpose is to provide data and keep track of petroleum refineries, petrochemicals productions, natural gas processing, and other oil and gas-related activities. Nigeria rarely gets power because they lack the infrastructure, institutions, and the money. With government involvement, there will be a more efficient solution, which is where the Presidential Action Committee on Power comes in, so they can provide governmental oversight of the implementation on electric power. The purpose of the National Strategy Climate Change Trust Fund is to ensure that climate change is handled urgently and cohesively across the country in national, sectoral, and local plans. Nigeria's interest is to provide solutions to some of their largest challenges, as well as explore opportunities for development while combating the climate change threat.
Our green machine has some recommendations to climate change in Nigeria to improve all-around development within Nigeria. Our recommendation is to improve technology to allow for electricity. By importing and exporting, technology advancements will create further industrialization, increasing the country's carbon emissions. This is what Nigeria needs to in order to further develop. The next thing is water resource. Nigeria has water resource in some area. However, and we do not have enough knowledge to transport water to every city or town in our country. We need to make relationship with our neighbor countries that has better knowledge to urban planning, like build the water pipe. Nigeria is rich in natural resource. Since we get benefit from the trade, the labor of the people living in Nigeria will get more benefit, not only the money. We can have more technology support to our electrical system. which can provide a higher quality of their life level. Furthermore, cost agriculture is best cost depending on reduced carbon footprint. It can make less CO2 to the air, and the plants can do the photosynthesis. Our recommendation addresses Schem's theoretical problem. We use more money on production rather than on investment. It can help governments spending out to use more on production, which would directly correlate within society of Nigeria. Our theory is that through improvement of Nigeria human development, as well as their improvement of relationships with other countries by engaging in equal trade acts. The last thing is vulnerable group. Women can have electricity and fresh water in their own place. Government could offer indigenous group more stable jobs. And the fourth group, getting fresh water may not to be difficult things and higher technology inconducive to health problem.
Wrapping it up, we have our researchers' recommendation, along with a clip from one of their fellow researchers, Tom Smith.
Nigeria is a country with a vast amount of contradiction and complexity. It has giant megacities and small rural tribes. It's a land of self-reliance and entrepreneurial spirit, aching to reap the benefits of a modern world. But it's also riddled with inequality, unemployment, and terror groups looking to reverse that progress. The rural countryside is plagued with problems. 2/3 of Nigerians live in extreme poverty. Infrastructure is a mess. Though electricity is notoriously spotty in Nigerian cities, it's much worse in the rest of the country. It's not uncommon to have a total of only 24 hours of working electricity for every 1 month period. This is largely due to the fact that the government's presence in rural areas can be almost non-existent. Indeed, it's this very absence that allowed for the rise and flourishing of terror groups like Boko Haram, who operate with relative impunity. You may know that Nigeria has a really big economy, surpassing even South Africa, but the country's increasing wealth is not filtering down to all its citizens. Indeed, the larger the economy grows, the more unequal Nigeria seems to become. A lot of the country's wealth is concentrated in its handful of billionaires, and their money largely comes from the country's oil industry. Nigeria's oil comprises 80% of the government's revenue, but it's an industry racked with corruption. Billions of dollars have just gone missing over the last few decades, and the government, which faces corruption charges of its own, has done little about it.
Hello, I'm Christina Briones here in Nigeria with the Minister of Power, Professor Shinu Dunibo. I'm concerned about the transmission of the electricity with the national grid and Nigeria getting power in their homes. What is happening in this regard?
Before this administration, we had just a radial transmission infrastructure for the country. Now we have moved to closing all the loops, to making it a real national grid. That is substantial. Second, the national grid cannot reach everybody. If you look at the expanse of land in Nigeria, if you look at the settlements, the demographics of the whole country, you will see that there are areas in which you see patches of communities, 100 households, 1,000 households, 50 kilometers later, another one like that. Can you imagine the cost of putting a grid between these two? That's why we must think outside the box. That's why this administration is doing. You cannot. It's going to cost an arm and a foot to make sure that every Nigerian home is lit up. So what are we going to do?
I can't see anything. Professor, I'm sorry, I can't see anything.
Flashlight?
Can somebody turn on a light? I can't see anything. I can't believe this. Ladies and gentlemen, we just had a blackout. Please excuse the technical difficulties as we still have so much to hear from Professor Shinu Dunibol.
People can only see finite improvement. But like, you can't go to Oka and tell people now that there's no improvement in electricity. They will know you're lying. You can't go to Umahi and say the same thing. You can't go to Kaduna where they're having 22, 23 hours of electricity supply on a daily basis and tell them there's no power improvement. There are areas that are getting this. And we are still working on making sure that, like my own street where I live in Enugu, my neighbors called me and said, Prof, how can you be minister and there is no light? The problem is that more places have been built. The transformer has been overloaded. So anytime power comes there, it trips. So what are we doing? We must put a larger transformer for the place. So quite often the problem is that we need to do a lot more work on the infrastructure, and we are doing that. For the first time in the history of this country, in the last 30 years, a substantial amount of capital is now available for the transmission of electricity, doing the infrastructure and doing it properly. And we are very happy for that. But at the distribution end, you know that these are now in the private hands. The government, the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission is at their backs. You must improve, you must get more transformers, you must wire more people, you must improve electricity. But unfortunately, and we found that to be true, some of them are rejecting power allocated to them. And that's why in my meeting last month, I said that we will sanction any distribution company that rejects electricity.
Wow, I have learned so much being a part of this experience. Green Machine, we thank you for joining us and sharing all of your knowledge. For any further information and to rate today's special edition, please visit us at channel4news.com. That's all we have for today on Channel 4 News. Once again, I'm Christina Briones, and thank you for tuning in.